Hello everybody, and welcome back to All Under Control. We're doing things, right? We're experiencing Alex's backstory, a life he has lived, doing some things. I'm stretching, I am sorry. Then sometime later, after 2 months of silence, I woke up to a text from Thomas. I didn't realize it had been that long since we last talked. Couple that with the fact that I was always someone who dreaded random texts out of the blue, I was feeling a bit scared. I had that gut feeling, like something was terribly wrong. Some kind of tragedy, as if his mother suddenly got terribly sick or for some friend passed away. Or perhaps it could be that he had broken up with his bear and was down both emotionally and financially. It felt silly jumping to conclusions like that. After all, he could have just sent something like, "Hey, how's it going, big guy? It's been a while," or something like that. Nervous as I was, I could only gather enough courage in me to actually check the message until it was nighttime, still expecting some bad shit. And yeah, I guess I was wrong. It wasn't just a bad feeling. It was way worse. What are we doing? Where are we going? To the present? Alex pauses, and I watched him turn to the kitchen. I'm from Rio de Janeiro? I don't know how it is pronounced, friend. Oh well. Which is a city which I was bound to leave behind at a certain point in life, given my disdain for both the sea and summer heat. So, Sao Paulo is, as my mother would say, the city of drizzle. The real tipping point that got me to move in was how cozy it felt during winter. Now, while the bear took a break from a glass of water and a couple more eye drops, I felt myself freezing to the goddamn spine. The sky from the balcony window was sickly pale, like a uniform sheet. A sheet of gray covering the whole city. Alex hadn't been blinking much during the story. He knew that I noticed that. At the end of most sentences, he shut his eyes in obvious agony, wincing and baring his teeth. They were yellowish and thinned out on the irritated gums. He wasn't doing well at all mentally, that I already knew. That I didn't really expect was the places his story was going. Then he came back with his water, just briefly glancing at the lonely slice of pizza he had heated a few minutes back. He seemed eager to continue. As it turned out, this wasn't just a vent, but a necessity. A compulsion to get the rest of his statement out there. I could do nothing but listen. Every word he uttered, carved in the back of my skull so I would never forget. I already told you that I felt uneasy when the notification popped up. And when I saw it was an audio track, it was like a key turning inside my head. Inside of me, sorry. I thought, okay, this is definitely serious. I sat on the couch, made sure I was free of, obviously, any other chores, and pressed play. Now, before I could keep going, I need to reassure you. Everything I've been telling you is the truth. I'm not making any of this up. I still have the audio saved. I can forward it to you later if you want. But I'd really rather not. There's something wrong with it. And well, I could only form guesses as to what specifically, after I went to this apartment. Alex sighs with deep regret. But now it's not the time. We'll get to that later. Hell, we need to. Now the audio. It felt something like... Yeah, friend? Yeah, friend? He stood still for a moment. Then something seemed to shift within him. Alex seemed a completely different voice from his own. It was a raspy, drawled and deep. A deep worn out from too many cigarettes in too little time, and which had known no true rest for way too long. Even his body language seemed to transform, and he assumed a slightly contorted posture on his back. His eyes were no longer at me, nor at any corner of the apartment, but looking directly through me to a point beyond space itself. Then he started. "Hey, big guy. I knew it's been a while since we last talked. Crazy times these days." He laughed, the noise of a morbid ghoul. "I wish I could tell you things were fine, but they're really not. Fucking far from it. You won't even believe it, and I don't even know how to start. I'm dropping the bomb right now. Diego is gone. Not like he abandoned me or we broke up kind of way. He's dead. Dead, plain and simple. And as how, well, he was into something bad, something dark." His voice cracked, and his breathing became heavier. "I need you to come. Please, I need to talk to someone. I can't do this through the phone. It's just too much. Way too much for me to handle on my own. Please. I'll be waiting for a response. Please don't leave me." He was shaking when he finished. At some point in the middle of his retelling, Alex almost started to cry. Back then, I guessed it was justifiable for him to feel that way, but I couldn't shake that it was still part of some kind of act. I didn't get it. It didn't feel right at all. It was making me feel uncomfortable, but I couldn't couldn't simply tell him to stop. Something had irrevocably captivated me beyond objection. Then, when the act was over, it was as if a shadow had lifted from the entire room. He was back to himself, staring at me with those terrified, unblinking eyes. "Sorry. I needed a moment." I just nodded. He got up for more water, then sat at the table next to his cold food, silverware clinking loudly while he cut the slice of pizza into smaller bites. I sat next to him. The first shock to hit me was his voice. It sounded tired, yes, but that wasn't everything. I don't know how to describe it in any other way, but I swear I could hear some kind of whisper between every pause, between every word. Like there was someone else talking. And it wasn't just an impression either. It was... what is this word? What is it? It was... knitted? Knitted? Okay. Is that how that is? Is that how that word looks? Am I insane? Yeah. Yeah, that's the fun part, though. At first, I thought it could have been the TV, but that would still sound somewhat distorted, wouldn't it? And there's more. Whenever the other voice was speaking, it wasn't Portuguese, it wasn't English, it wasn't like any language I'd ever heard. And yet, deep in my head, I could almost understand the intent behind it, being directly transferred to my subconscious. Like, thoughts forming in my brain without even having the effort to think them. Like, hypnosis. I felt a compulsion inside my mind. Thomas was calling me to his home. How could I refuse? It was impossible. I didn't even send a text. I decided to visit him the very next morning. Now, first of all, I already mentioned how unsettling Alex's reenactment felt to me, but there was another layer of it, which I felt like truly elevated it. This could just be me misremembering things, or prior events, reshaping them in hindsight. But as he was speaking, I remember also noticing how kind of whispering between his words as well. I don't know what it was, and I wasn't about to start theorizing right away. As soon as it was over, I felt a wave of nausea spread through my body, then a slight headache, and then nothing else. As Alex continued his story. Oh, where is this? Is this residential? I didn't even send a text. I decided to visit him the very next morning. What I'm about to tell you is both a recollection of everything I saw that day, and a few more details I only learned about during the time that followed. I'll try to be brief, because after I got here, we literally spent an entire afternoon just talking. Sometimes over repeated topics, and other times over stuff I never really managed to make much sense of. Now, you already know I don't like going out much. Besides COVID anxiety, the distance from the rest of the city always felt discouraging in many ways. I also never got to learn bus routes, and since I earned enough anyway, an Uber every now and then never hurt. I always wished I had made more effort to visit friends more often after I got vaccinated. But like that Los Hermanos song? It says, leaving home is already going on an adventure. But my brain wouldn't let that cursed itch go away. It spoke louder than anything else. And while normally I'd welcome any reason to leave my apartment, this time it felt like I was walking into an early grave. Like my survival instinct was screaming, and I was momentarily deaf to it. Nothing would stop me. Thomas's apartment complex was beautiful, small, and filled with gardens and hedges around a couple of gazebos of Greco-Roman art style. I stared at them at the reception, while the guard at the lookout phoned the wolf. During the Uber ride, I had passed by a shopping mall just a few blocks away, followed by a family-owned French restaurant and a small cafe and bookstore around the corner. Then I looked outside and noticed a little pharmacy and convenience store just a few paces across the sidewalk. That was a cozy location, and when they let me in, I took my time just looking around the complex. I always felt a bit class-conscious when visiting such places. I didn't know how much Diego made a month, but if he could afford a place like this, I think he and Thomas were living a dream. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, even after I got to his floor. Walking into the hallway, there was the scent of someone's mid-afternoon coffee from one of the rooms. Then the muffled beats of music from another, and like Anna Karenina singing? I don't know things, and how much she liked roses. And then some muffled action movie sounds from the other one right after. Why was I so afraid there'd be anything unusual? Even if the audio had creeped me out a bit, it looked like this was gonna be just another visit. We'd sit down, vent for a while, watch something, order a burger, and then I'd sleep on the couch just to keep him company overnight. But I got to his door, and all of my expectations shattered. Like a prick on the back of my neck or a sudden chill you're only supposed to feel in moments of near death. There was an aura of uncanny foulness beyond that door, even if it looked barely discernible from all others. Thomas didn't like decorating it much besides the Pride welcome rug. But there are some things that seem to go beyond what they look like. Our eyes cannot see it, but something else inside us can feel its presence, and its repulsiveness. I turned the knob. He knew I was coming, so the door hadn't been locked. Oh, look at how nice it is in here. Look at that smile face on the cup. Look at that. When I walked in, a warm cloud of rot and decay was the first thing to greet me. It was too dark and way too cold for a wolf. The dishes and cups piled in the sink like a porcelain castle, and so did the dirty clothes on top of the dining table. The walls appeared to sweat out a dark, gooey substance. And the smell. God, the smell. I could feel the filth in the air. It felt heavy to walk in there, like a dull knife slicing through burnt steak. Like straining to see in the dark. It was a warning, one I should have listened to before I noticed Thomas's frail figure emerging from his bedroom. Oh, hello, friend. Bear? He murmured. I couldn't see more than a blurry shape in the dark, but it was obvious he was trembling, leaning against the wall with barely enough strength, with any strength on his legs. I'm sorry for calling you. I really am. I shivered. Thomas, what is all this? He didn't respond right away, and during that silence, I heard that weird thing again. Whispering coming from nowhere that I could trace. You better sit. We're going to be here for a while. I'm sorry I can't offer you anything to drink. I know you love coffee as much as I do, or did. Oh, Alex. I couldn't go for days without a cup or two. For at least 2 cups. Whoops, sorry. But now it's been so long, I don't even remember the taste. He chuckled at that. It was a drawled, terminal kind of chuckle of rusty vocal cords. I sat at the dinner table on the only chair I could see that didn't have anything on it, be it clothes or paper wraps from takeout orders. Then he left his spot, and my eyes adjusted just enough that I could see him. Oh, he's still got, like, the masky mask. You know, like the sleepwear one, you know. I hear those are good for you, but I don't know. I don't know, man. He was, how could I put it? At that moment, I remember that phrase, thinner than death, came on a whim and stuck with me. I saw his skin stretching over the bones. Fur seemed to have fallen from most of his torso, while a bunch of scars decorated him side to side. His face didn't seem much better. The unkept tufts along his jawline pointed in all directions, and both his ears had been nicked at the base. His left ear, in specific, was missing a good chunk of the tip. Fucking hell, I thought, feeling as if in front of a car wreck. Had Diego done all this to him? If so, I didn't have any idea until that day. Then I noticed his eyes, or rather, I noticed that I couldn't find them. It's usually so easy to see wolf eyes in the dark due to how much they reflect, but his were covered under a sleep mask. It only started a few months ago. I guess you could say we got a bit too excited with some things. You must have noticed at some point I stopped messaging you about it. It's not because I suddenly got shy or thought I was bothering you. Things really got out of control. And then he told me everything, very slowly, like he had been rehearsing all of this for a while. I think it took him more than an hour to finish it, but at that time, it felt like just a few minutes. I understood why he had to take his time. Some horrors, especially the ones that dig deep inside you, require patience. You need to dissect them in order to rip off those roots and repair those rotten foundations. It's like surgery of the mind. Thomas and Diego were into hypnosis. For a long time, I assumed it was just play pretend on both parts. You couldn't actually make someone do things they'd never do, right? But at a certain point, Thomas told me he really wanted to test that limit for a change. Paradoxical, right? Willing himself to do something unwillingly. I didn't think it would work, and at first, it really didn't. At least not as well as he had hoped. To give one example, if Diego was into water sports, Thomas was not. One night, Thomas wanted Diego to hypnotize him into drinking his own piss, which only resulted in the wolf vomiting all over the floor just seconds during the trance. That went on to other kinks, he said he wouldn't even try, and others that neither one of them were into. It was like a test of how far they could push that fantasy. Of course, though, Diego would sometimes try to push back. This isn't what hypnosis is about, he said. To absolutely no avail. Thomas wouldn't give up. They both kept going to more extremes, looking here and there for different methods of induction. Then something changed. Look at that smile. Something sinister had invited itself into their play, and much to their dismay, would give them exactly what they had been seeking. One night, Thomas saw that Diego had pulled an all-nighter on his computer. He never did that. A man's commitment to a schedule is the golden badge of the passionate soul, he would sometimes remark. Thomas saw him bathed in the blue light of his monitor, eyes wide open, grinning to himself. When the bear noticed he was being watched, he closed the window he was looking at and chuckled. "Oh, I got something for us all right," he teased. "Just you wait." He said and done. 3 days later, still with that same grin implanted on his face, Diego left the apartment for a couple of hours to meet with a local friend. When he returned, it was within an even wider smile, a thick leather-bound tome cradled in his arms like a newborn pup. Thomas didn't say what kind of book it was, wouldn't even name the author when I asked. Said it was some weird Arab name. Arab name? Arab. He couldn't pronounce. Then he said, "When he walked in with that damn tome, I swear I could see the walls bend and contort to make way to new shapes of darkness I never knew existed." This is the answer, Diego had said. The answer to everything we've been looking for: power and control. Thomas mentioned how Diego's paws rubbed the leather cover with intimate delicacy. That is what that words are. He looked terribly eager to open it. "You should prepare yourself," he continued. "Just give me some time. I swear this will be good." Thomas didn't question it. A few minutes later, he showed up into the bedroom, completely naked and already semi-hard, smiling and panting while Diego's eyes were glued to the book's pages. "Okay, everyone, I'm going to end the part here, so I'll see you guys around."